At the dawn of the automobile age, when America was racing headlong into a future powered by engines instead of horses, a quiet but extraordinary chapter of history was being written, one that most people have never been told. Long before modern conversations about diversity, representation, or equal opportunity, there existed a black-owned automobile company that dared to compete in an industry dominated by powerful industrial giants. Its name was C.R. Patterson and Sons, and for a brief but remarkable moment between 1915 and 1918, it built a real American automobile, the Patterson Greenfield. This is not just a story about a car. It is a story about vision, craftsmanship, and courage in an era when success was far from guaranteed. While companies like Ford and Chevrolet were reshaping transportation through massive factories and assembly lines, C.R. Patterson and Sons took a different path, one rooted in precision, pride, and generations of skilled workmanship. Every vehicle they produced carried more than steel and horsepower. It carried the weight of ambition and the determination to be seen in a world that often refused to look. The Patterson Greenfield was not a novelty or a footnote. It was a fully realized automobile designed for families, built for comfort, and priced with everyday people in mind. Yet despite its quality and promise, its story faded into the background as industrial forces and economic realities reshaped the nation. What remains today is not a surviving car, but a legacy that challenges what we think we know about American and automotive history. In this video, we uncover the hidden journey behind C.R. Patterson and Sons, the people, the risks, and the moment when a black-owned company stood shoulder to shoulder with America's earliest automakers. If you believe forgotten history deserves to be remembered, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story so it reaches those who have never heard it. Let us bring this remarkable legacy back into the light. To understand how C.R. Patterson and Sons could ever exist in the age of early automobiles, the story must move backward, long before engines and factory floors, to the life of the man whose vision made it all possible. Charles Richard Patterson was born in 1833, at a time when freedom itself was not a given, and opportunity was something few people like him were ever expected to touch. His earliest years remain largely undocumented, but what is known is enough to reveal a truth far more powerful than dates and records. Patterson began life with every limitation imposed upon him, yet refused to let those limits define his ending. By the time he arrived in Greenfield, Ohio, Patterson had entered a town shaped by abolitionist ideals and quiet acts of resistance. Greenfield was not free of prejudice, but it was a place where skill, discipline, and reputation could still open doors that remained firmly shut elsewhere. It was here that Patterson found his footing, not through grand gestures or borrowed influence, but through the steady rhythm of honest work. He trained as a blacksmith, a profession that demanded precision, endurance, and trust, and one of the few skilled trades where a man's hands could speak louder than his background. Metal and wood became his language. As transportation evolved from simple wagons to refined carriages, Patterson's craftsmanship evolved with it. He earned respect not by seeking attention, but by delivering quality that could not be ignored. Working first for established carriage makers, he proved himself reliable, innovative, and capable of leadership, eventually supervising integrated teams at a time when such cooperation was far from common. Each finished carriage rolling out of the workshop carried his quiet signature: balance, durability, and care. Yet Patterson was never content to remain in another man's shadow. With measured confidence and strategic partnerships, he stepped into ownership, establishing a business that would soon carry his own name. The move was bold, not because ambition was unusual, but because the barriers surrounding him were immense. Access to capital was limited, expectations were low, and failure was assumed. Still, Patterson persisted, allowing the quality of his work to challenge every assumption made about who belonged in American industry. As his business grew, so did his standing within the community. Patterson became more than a manufacturer. He became a figure of trust and responsibility, active in church life, invested in education, and unafraid to defend opportunity when it was denied. His company expanded its offerings, refined its designs, and reached customers far beyond Ohio, quietly earning national recognition in trade publications and catalogs. What began as a blacksmith's trade matured into a respected manufacturing enterprise, one built not on shortcuts or spectacle, but on consistency and excellence. This foundation mattered when the world began shifting from horse-drawn transport to the uncertain promise of the automobile. Patterson's company did not scramble to catch up. It adapted with purpose, guided by decades of experience in craftsmanship, engineering, and customer trust. The leap into automotive production would not have been possible without the long road that came before it, a road shaped by patience, resilience, and an unshakable belief in the value of one's work. Charles Richard Patterson did not simply rise despite barriers. He rose by mastering his craft so completely that those barriers could no longer contain him. His journey transformed skill into legacy and laid the groundwork for a moment in history when a black-owned company would do something few believed possible. The automobile that later bore the Patterson name was not an accident of timing. It was the natural result of a life spent proving, one careful step at a time, that excellence could outlast exclusion. By the closing decades of the 19th century, the small workshop that Charles Richard Patterson had once helped build with his own hands had transformed into something far more significant. What began as a trade rooted in blacksmithing and repair had matured into a full-scale manufacturing operation, its reputation traveling well beyond the quiet streets of Greenfield, Ohio. Carriages bearing the Patterson name were no longer local curiosities. They were products sought after by professionals, families, and institutions across the region, valued for their reliability and thoughtful design. Inside the factory, the pace of work reflected both discipline and pride. Dozens of craftsmen moved through their routines with practiced coordination, shaping wood, fitting metal, and finishing interiors with care that could not be rushed. The workforce itself quietly defied expectations of the era. Men of different backgrounds labored side by side, not as a statement, but as a practical reality built on mutual respect and shared skill. In an age when separation was the norm, Patterson's shop functioned as a place where workmanship mattered more than appearance, and where trust was earned through performance rather than assumption. Innovation played a central role in the company's rise. Patterson was not content to replicate what others had already done. He looked for ways to improve it. The patents secured during this period were not ornamental achievements meant for display, but working solutions to real problems faced by carriage owners. From mechanical couplings that improved ride comfort to structural refinements that increased durability, these ideas reflected a deep understanding of how vehicles behaved on uneven roads and in unpredictable weather. Each improvement strengthened the company's reputation for building products that endured daily use, rather than merely impressing at first glance. As production increased, so did ambition. By the late 1800s, the company was turning out hundreds of carriages each year, offering a wide range of models tailored to different needs. There were practical school buggies built for routine travel, elegant enclosed designs favored by doctors and professionals, and specialized wagons designed for delivery work. Rather than limiting customers to fixed designs, Patterson's catalogs encouraged adaptation, allowing buyers to select features that suited their environment and profession. This flexibility helped distinguish the company from competitors who prioritized volume over customization. Reaching customers required more than craftsmanship alone, and Patterson understood the power of visibility. The company advertised in statewide and national publications, presenting itself confidently to a broader market that often overlooked businesses like his. These advertisements emphasized quality, reliability, and thoughtful design, reinforcing the idea that the Patterson name stood for dependable transportation. Over time, this consistent messaging built recognition far beyond Ohio, turning a regional manufacturer into a respected name within the carriage industry. Economic uncertainty tested even the strongest enterprises, and the downturn of the 1890s challenged businesses across the country. Yet Patterson's company endured, adjusting its operations without sacrificing standards. The ability to weather financial pressure while continuing to employ dozens of workers spoke to careful management and a loyal customer base that trusted the product. By the time the economy stabilized, the company emerged not weakened, but strengthened, its output steady and its confidence intact. This period marked the peak of the carriage era for C. Patterson's enterprise, but it also planted the seeds for what would come next. The systems, skills, and mindset developed during these years prepared the company for a world on the verge of transformation. When engines began replacing horses and roads filled with unfamiliar machines, Patterson's business was not starting from zero. It stood on decades of experience in precision manufacturing, customer trust, and innovation. The success of these late 19th century years was more than an achievement in its own right. It was the foundation that made an extraordinary leap into automotive history possible. When Charles Richard Patterson passed away in 1910, the company he had spent a lifetime building stood at a crossroads. The world beyond Greenfield was changing at a speed few could have imagined only a decade earlier. Horses, once the unquestioned backbone of transportation, were gradually giving way to machines that rattled down streets with smoke, noise, and promise. Into this moment stepped Frederick Douglass Patterson, carrying not only the responsibility of leadership, but the weight of a legacy shaped by patience, craftsmanship, and quiet determination. Frederick was not unfamiliar with transformation. Educated, disciplined, and forward-looking, he understood that honoring his father's work did not mean preserving it unchanged. The strength of the company had always come from adaptation, from recognizing shifts in society and responding with skill rather than hesitation. While many carriage builders dismissed the automobile as a passing curiosity, Frederick watched carefully, studying how these new machines behaved and how customers responded to them. He recognized that survival depended not on resisting change, but on mastering it. The first step was not manufacturing, but understanding. Under Frederick's direction, the company began offering repair and restoration services for the growing number of automobiles appearing in town. What might have seemed like a modest adjustment was, in truth, a strategic education. Mechanics who once specialized in woodwork and metal fittings now learned the language of engines, drivetrains, and electrical systems. Each repair brought new insight. Each modification deepened their familiarity with machines that were still evolving year by year. Frederick encouraged experimentation without abandoning standards. The same care that had once gone into carriage bodies now went into repainting automobile frames, roof-bolstering interiors, systems plasticine, and gradually improving mechanical reliability. Over time, the shop moved beyond surface work, developing the confidence to refine ignition systems, strengthen suspensions, and address the weaknesses common to early automobiles. Customers noticed. Trust, built over decades of dependable craftsmanship, extended naturally into this new era of transportation. Advertising reflected this shift. Notices placed in local newspapers announced automobile repair services with quiet confidence, signaling that the Patterson name remained relevant even as the world changed around it. These messages were not boasts, but invitations. Offering reassurance to motorists uncertain about where to turn for reliable service. The company became a bridge between two eras, grounded in the traditions of carriage building while gaining fluency in the mechanics of the future. As experience accumulated, Frederick began to envision something more ambitious. Repairing automobiles had taught the company what worked and what failed, what customers valued and what frustrated them. This knowledge, combined with generations of manufacturing expertise, suggested a possibility that few would dare to pursue. If others could build automobiles, why not a company that had already proven its ability to produce high-quality vehicles under far more restrictive conditions? The decision to move toward automobile manufacturing was not impulsive. It was the result of observation, preparation, and confidence earned through hands-on experience. Frederick understood the limitations of scale and capital, yet believed that craftsmanship could still carve out a place in an industry increasingly driven by mass production. The goal was not to overwhelm established giants, but to offer a well-built, thoughtfully designed car that reflected the same principles that had guided the company since its earliest days. In steering the business into the automotive age, Frederick Douglass Patterson did more than modernize an enterprise. He extended a legacy built by his father, proving that adaptation itself was an act of respect. The shift from horse-drawn vehicles to automobiles was not a break from the past, but its continuation, shaped by new tools and new challenges. Through careful leadership and steady vision, Frederick positioned the company for its most daring chapter yet, one that would place the Patterson name not only in the history of craftsmanship, but on the road itself. When the Patterson Greenfield automobile finally emerged, it stood as the natural culmination of decades spent mastering the art of vehicle construction. Everything the company had learned from carriage making, from precision joinery to balance and durability, found new expression in steel, glass, and machinery. This was not an experimental novelty assembled in haste, but a carefully considered automobile designed for everyday use. From its body lines to its interior comfort, the Patterson Greenfield reflected a belief that a motorcar should be dependable, dignified, and accessible rather than extravagant. Frederick Douglass Patterson positioned the car with intention. It was not meant to compete at the very top of the market, nor was it designed to be disposable or cheaply made. Priced sensibly, it targeted families and professionals who wanted reliability without excess. The car offered features that were modern for its time, including electric starting and lighting, solid mechanical components, and thoughtful design choices that prioritized comfort and usability. Each detail echoed the company's long-standing reputation for quality, reassuring customers that this new machine was built with the same care that had once defined its finest carriages. Early responses were encouraging. Orders arrived, and for a brief moment, the future seemed open with possibility. The Patterson name, already respected in carriage circles, now appeared alongside other American automakers, marking a historic step forward. Yet beneath the optimism lay challenges that craftsmanship alone could not overcome. The automotive industry was rapidly transforming into a contest of scale, speed, and capital, driven by massive factories and production lines concentrated in Detroit. Unlike the giants of the industry, C.R. Patterson and Sons built its automobiles largely by hand. This allowed for quality control and attention to detail, but it also meant that each vehicle required far more labor than those rolling off assembly lines by the thousands. Parts and materials were purchased in small quantities, often at higher costs, while larger manufacturers secured steep discounts by buying entire trainloads at once. Every Patterson Greenfield carried not only the weight of its components, but also the economic disadvantage of limited scale. Time itself became an adversary. As production methods grew more automated elsewhere, expectations around pricing shifted. Consumers, drawn by affordability and brand visibility, increasingly turned toward mass-produced vehicles that promised similar functionality at lower prices. The Patterson Greenfield, though fairly priced for its quality, struggled to compete in a market that was redefining value in terms of volume rather than workmanship. Frederick Patterson understood these realities. He saw that the industry was no longer one where a small, skilled manufacturer could easily survive on excellence alone. The margins were thin, the competition relentless, and the pace of change unforgiving. Continuing automobile production would have required investments that risked the stability of the entire business, a gamble that threatened the livelihoods of the workers who had sustained the company for generations. By 1918, the decision was made to halt automobile manufacturing. Estimates suggest that only a limited number of Patterson Greenfield cars were built, each one a testament to ambition and resolve, while the company would continue in other forms, adapting once again to new demands. This chapter quietly closed without fanfare or preserved examples to display in museums. Yet the absence of surviving cars does not diminish what the Patterson Greenfield represented. It proved that a company rooted in craftsmanship, guided by vision, and sustained by perseverance could stand among America's early automakers, even if only briefly. In an era increasingly defined by mass production, the Patterson Greenfield stood as a reminder that innovation is not measured solely by scale. Its story remains one of courage and clarity, a moment when quality, purpose, and history converged on the road before moving on, leaving behind a legacy far larger than the number of cars produced. The story of C.R. Patterson and Sons does not end with the last Patterson Greenfield automobile rolling off the production floor or the final closure of the company in 1939. It lives on in a far more profound and enduring way. What Charles Richard Patterson and his son Frederick achieved was nothing short of extraordinary. From the ashes of slavery and the barriers of racial prejudice, They built a business that not only survived for generations, but also left an indelible mark on American industry. Their journey reminds us that innovation and courage often flourish in the most unexpected places, and that resilience is measured not only in products made, but in the lives touched and the legacies created. Although the company faced challenges that ultimately prevented it from scaling alongside the automotive giants of Detroit, the impact of the Patterson family's vision cannot be measured merely in numbers or surviving vehicles. Each carriage, each carefully hand-built automobile, each design improvement and patent reflected a commitment to excellence that transcended circumstance. They demonstrated that craftsmanship, ingenuity, and perseverance could thrive even under conditions where the odds were stacked against them. Their story is a testament to the power of determination, proving that African American entrepreneurs could not only participate in, but help shape the trajectory of American industry at a time when access and opportunity were severely limited. The Patterson legacy is about more than the vehicles themselves. It is about setting a precedent for what Black innovation could achieve, about demonstrating that talent, skill, and vision know no racial boundaries. It is about showing future generations that with focus, resilience, and courage, it is possible to break barriers and redefine expectations. The story of C.R. Patterson and Sons encourages us to reconsider the histories we think we know and to celebrate achievements that were overlooked, undervalued, or forgotten. As we reflect on this remarkable history, it becomes clear that the Patterson story is not only a chronicle of automobiles or carriages, it is a narrative of hope, perseverance, and transformation. And formation, it is a story that deserves to be remembered, shared, and honored, not only because of what was built, but because of what it represented, vision and excellence in the face of adversity. The Pattersons' contribution to American history, and especially to the narrative of Black entrepreneurship, continues to inspire and challenge us today, reminding us that innovation and determination can leave a legacy far greater than material achievements alone. Thank you for taking the time to explore this incredible story with us. If you have been inspired by the perseverance, ingenuity, and brilliance of Charles Richard Patterson, Frederick Douglass Patterson, and their remarkable company, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story so others can learn about this hidden chapter of history. By doing so, you help ensure that the legacy of C.R. Patterson and Sons continues to inspire new generations, keeping alive the memory of Black excellence that helped shape the American road.